Every thought, every memory, every skill begins with one extraordinary organ, the human brain. Billions of neurons communicate every second, forming the foundation of learning, memory, emotions, and intelligence. Every classroom experience changes the brain. Every lesson strengthens new connections. Every teacher helps shape the future. Welcome to our exploration of biological development.
Hello everyone, I am Crizali Casvifer and I am from Maglitisha at Chagwe Isabela. And now we're talking about biological beginnings. Think about it. The most complicated thing you've ever done was something you didn't even remember. It is building yourself through a single cell. So what is biological beginning? It is simply where human life physically starts. This unfolds through prenatal development, the 9 months growth inside the womb. There are 3 stages. First, zygote, that is the formation or the first single cell with your unique DNA, wherein the sperm cell and egg cell are joined. Second stage, the embryo. Dito na nade-develop yung brain, heart, and organs. And third stage is fetus. Dito na nag-grow, nagmamature, and prepares for birth. So, bakit nga ba ito mahalaga? For teachers, this is the early foundation shape how children learn and check for hidden needs early. Okay guys, let's break it down simply. Ang biological development or in the prenatal development, hindi nito totally madedesisyonan yung future natin. But it has a big factor kung paano magiging smooth o hindi ba yung paglaki natin. Kasi meron tayong tinatawag na teratogens. Ito yung mga harmful factors na pwedeng magdulot ng defects like bisyo, sakit, o kulang sa malnutrisyong habang buntis. So, kapag na-expose ang baby dito, pwede talaga nitong baguhin ang takbo ng development nila. Hindi lang habang nasa tiyan pa, kundi hanggang sa lumaki sila. Kaya, as future teachers, tandaan natin na kapag may estudyanteng nahihirapan, hindi agad ibig sabihin na tamad o mahina sila. Pwedeng may koneksyon ito sa nangyari bago pa man sila ipanganak. Hindi natin hawak ang simula nila, pero nasa atin kung paano natin sila tutulungang magpatuloy. So, prematurity, ito naman yung kapag mas naipanganak yung baby ng mas maaga sa dapat na oras. Hindi lang po ito tungkol sa kung mabubuhay ba sila kapag labas, kundi ang pagiging premature ay pwedeng magdulot din sa kanila ng epekto na dadalhin nila hanggang sa paglaki, tulad na lang ng mahinang paningin. For example, yung criminology. Kailangan doon ng matalas na mata. And kapag yung batang iyon na premature ay nag-apply doon, it's either matatanggap siya or hindi sa dream course niya. Kasi, it has a big factor sa kanyang future. Kaya, as a future teachers, tandaan natin ito na kapag napansin nating hirap magbasa or hindi makasunod yung isang bata sa pisara, baka hindi naman ito dahil hindi sila nakikinig, kundi pwedeng konektado ito sa premature nung sanggol pa lang sila. Kaya mahalaga yung maagang check-up at tamang tulong na kailangan nila. Ngayon, tignan natin kung paano ito magagamit sa totoong classroom, lalo na sa elementary. Isipin nyo, may isang grade 1 student na premature nung ipinanganak. Napapansin nyo na madalas siyang dumidikit o pumipikit kapag tumitingin sa pisara. Nagkakamali sa pagkopya at madaling mainis kapag nagbabasa. Sa halip na isipin nating tamad siya o hindi nakikinig, tandaan natin na baka may kinalaman ito sa pagiging premature niya. Pwedeng mahina talaga yung paningin niya dahil doon. Kung ano ba ang pwede nating gawin? As a future teachers, kailangan nating gawin ay ilipat natin siya sa unahan upang mas maging malinaw ang nakikita niya. Gumamit tayo ng mas malalaking font at mga worksheet na babasahin niya. At higit sa lahat, alamin natin ang background niya at ipakonsulta sa school o nurse o doctor kung kinakailangan. Ayan, as a future educators, there are 2 key takeaways that we must remember. First, the classroom has prenatal roots. Katulad nga ng sabi ko kanina, hindi lang lahat nabubuo sa school, kundi ang development ng bata is nag-i-start siya inside the womb or prenatal development. So, marami sa pundasyon ng utak at katawan ay nabubuo habang nasa sinapupunan pa lang sila. Halimbawa, yung batang hindi makapagtagal sa upuan, madaling mawala sa focus o hirap na sundin yung mga sunod-sunod na ginagawa. Hindi lamang dahil tamad sila, kundi it was influenced by the prenatal development. So, the second one, key takeaways we must understand as a future educator is the early screening is an instructional tool. So, ano nga po ba ang ibig sabihin nito? Hindi lang po ito simpleng pagpapatingin sa doktor, kundi ito ay being observant. So, ang mahalagang pagsusuri ay nagiging bahagi na mismo ng ating pagtuturo. Kapag nalaman natin kung ano ang pisikal na pangangailangan ng bata, nagkakaroon tayo ng tamang idea kung paano sila tuturuan. So, bakit nga ba ito mahalaga? Mahalaga ito upang maging kasangkapan ng guro dahil po hindi tayo nakakapagturo ng maayos kung hindi natin alam kung ano ang humahadlang sa kanila.
Hello everyone, I am Erami Raquel C. Ilagan, and for today's topic, let's talk about physical and motor development. Middle childhood usually starts around 6 or 11 years old. In this age, growth rate of children slows, weight increases more than height. Ibig sabihin, ang mga batang edad 6 or 11 years old is mas bumabagal yung kanilang pagtangkad pero mas mabilis na bumibigat yung timbang nila. Second, motor skills develop through play to organize sport. Ibig sabihin, mas nagiging bihasa sila sa paggalaw sa pamamagitan ng paglaro. Halimbawa na lamang is ang paglalaro ng basketball, patintero, or di kaya is badminton at pagbibisikleta. Self-help skills are continuously mastered during middle childhood. Ibig sabihin, sa edad na ito, natututo na raw yung bata na magbihes, kumain ng mag-isa, at maligo ng mag-isa. Adolescence. This is the kids that usually 11 or 12 years old. Puberty occurs or the process of attaining sexual maturation and the ability to reproduction. Ang edad 11 na taon pataas, dito na daw nararanasan ng isang bata ang puberty. Dito din nagbabago ang kanilang boses, nagkakaroon sila ng hair sa kanilang private part, sa kanilang body, and nagkakaroon na din sila ng kakayahang mag-reproduce. Primary sex characteristic related to organs. It means sa edad na ito is dito na nagkakaroon yung mga, usually yung mga babae, ng menstruational period. And sa lalaki naman is sa edad na ito is meron na silang kakayahan na mag-reproduce. Secondary sex characteristics. Psychological signs like skin texture, body hair, changes of voice. Secondary sex characteristic. Psychological signs like skin texture, body hair, changes of voice. Dito sa edad na to is nararanasan na ng mga bata yung pag nag-iiba na yung skin texture nila, nagkakaroon na sila ng body hair sa mga private part nila, like kunwari sa lalaki is tinutubuan na sila ng bigote sa kanilang mga mukha, ganyan, or di kaya yung mga lalaki is nagbabago na yung boses nila dahil nga sa pagbibinata for elementary teachers. Usually, nangyayari to sa classroom ng isang elementary teachers. Students are experiencing early pubertal changes, or one of the students are wearing jacket in a hot weather and avoiding participation in class and showing extreme consciousness. It's mean, kunwari sa isang classroom is napapansin ng mga guro ang mga estudyante niyang dumadaan sa isang puberty ay madalas silang maging self-conscious. It's mean, parang silang laging nahihiya sa kanilang itsura, ganyan, sa may boses. Like, kunwari na lang is, kung may nakita kang isang estudyante na naka-jacket naman, kahit sobrang init or hindi siya sumasali sa recitation dahil nahihiya siya. This is the response that a teachers can do. Kunwari, magbigay sila ng privacy sa mga gamit pang hygiene or magpatupad sila ng policy about anti-bullying laban sa panunukso sa itsura ng isang bata. Halimbawa na lamang sa isang scenario is imbis na asarin ang batang pumiyok habang nagsasalita is agad itong ipatigil ng guro at ipaniwanag na normal lang yung pagpiyok bilang isang lalaki, kasi most of the boys is usually napipiyok talaga sila dahil nga nag-iiba na yung voice nila due to puberty. Different physical activities. Biological growth varies widely in a single classroom. Teachers should avoid uniform physical requirements and instead offer skilled options like fine motor scaling and gross motor scaling. But now, let's talk about fine motor scaling. Number 1, standard. Use standard scissors and pencils for intricate tasks. Number 2, scaled down. Provide loop scissors and thick pencils grips for those needing more support. Third, scaled up. Challenge advanced students with multi-layered patterns or 3D models. Dahil nga magkakaiba ang bilis ng paglaki ng bata or may pagkakaiba-iba sila kung paano sila natututo, dapat may iba't ibang level din ang kanilang mga gawain. And the number 1, fine motor. Ang fine motor, ito yung paggamit ng gunting or lapis. Halimbawa na lamang is may isang batang nahihirapan, ay pwede silang gumamit ng loop scissors or yung madaling pindutin, habang ang advanced naman ay pwede silang paggawin ng mas komplikadong 3D models. The gross motors. Ito yung pagtakbo or paglalaro. Halimbawa na lamang sa paglalaro ng bola, ang mga bata is nahihirapan sila, ay pwede silang gumamit muna ng malaking balloon para mas madaling saluhin or mas madali nila itong matrack. Here is the teacher's tip. Avoid labeling tears as easy or hard. Instead, present them as personal choices like pick your tool that helps your hand do their best work today. Ibig sabihin lang, huwag tawaging easy or hard ang mga levels. Sa halip is sabihin sa mga estudyante na pumili ka ng gamit na makakatulong sa iyo para magawa mo ang task mo ng mas maayos ngayong araw. Ito ay makakatulong para hindi mailang ang bata sa kanilang piniling level. Kasi nga, ang mga bata is may different levels of learning sila. Hindi sila pare-parehas na madaling matuto. Cultivating a psychologically safe environment to support students during changes in physical puberty. Number 1 is the stigmatizing body changes. Use diverse representation in classroom materials such as posters or stories, and frame physical changes like acne or voice cracks as universal healthy milestones. It's ipakita na ang pagkakaroon ng isang acne or ang pagpiyok ay normal lang sa isang tao. Strategic grouping. Avoid seating charts based on height, as this can cause self-consciousness. Instead, group students by academic or play interest. Huwag igrupo ang mga bata base sa kanilang height. Kunwari na lamang is mula sa pinakamaliit hanggang sa pinakamalaki. Dahil pwede rin itong mag-cause ng consciousness ng isang bata. Like kunwari is nako-conscious sila sa height nila kasi nga mas matangkad yung iba sa kanila. Sa halip na gawin ito is igrupo na lang sila base sa kanilang hilig or sa kanilang akademikong interest. Zero tolerance for body shaming. Establish clear rules for personal space and address micro-teasing immediately with firm, restorative interventions. Dapat agad na pagsabihan ang sinumang nanunukso sa kunwari sa isang bata tungkol sa kanyang physical na anyo. Halimbawa na lamang is sa kanyang timbang, sa kanyang itsura. And the last part is protecting dignity. Provide private access to hygiene products such as deodorant, pads, and ensure private changing areas for physical education. Ay, ibig sabihin na lamang is, dapat kapag may PE class is, dapat meron tayong hygiene kit in case of emergency. Halimbawa na lamang is sa PE class, dapat siguraduhin may pribadong lugar para makapagpalit yung mga students ng kanilang damit upang mapangalagaan nila yung kanilang dignidad.
Hi everyone, I am Aryan Jade B. Laurencio and we're going to talk about neuroscience and brain development. So what is neuroscience? Neuroscience is the scientific study of the brain and nervous system. It explains how the brain grows, learns, stores memories, and adapts to experiences throughout the life. Brain development begins before birth and continues into adulthood. Although a child's brain reaches almost 90% of its adult size by the age of 3, its internal structures and functions continue to mature for many years. So we're moving on to brain growth and development. Brain develops in stages. Not all parts mature at the same time. Areas responsible for movements and senses are the first to develop, while areas responsible for higher thinking, decision-making, and emotional control continues to develop until early adulthood. For example, the motor cortex. It develops early to help children walk and move. The language center develop rapidly during childhood, making it easier to learn languages. Prefrontal cortex, responsible for planning, decision-making, and self-control, is one of the last areas of brain to mature. This explains why young children can quickly learn new words but may still struggle with controlling their emotions or making complex decisions. So now, let's talk about myelination and why myelination is important in brain development. Myelination is the process of covering the neurons with fatty substance called myelin. This coating works like the insulation around the electrical wires so that the electrical signals will travel more faster and more efficient between the brain and cells. Without myelin, information moves slowly. As myelination increases, thinking, movement, and learning become quicker and more accurate. So why myelination is important? It speeds up communication between neurons, improves memory, enhances coordination, increases attention, and makes learning more efficient. So let's give an example. A grade 1 student practices handwriting every day. After several months, writing becomes faster and neater because the neural pathways responsible for writing have become more efficient. Now we have synaptic pruning. During early childhood, the brain creates billions of neural connections called synapses. However, not all of these connections are needed. The brain removes weak or unused connections through the process called synaptic pruning, while strengthening the pathways that are used regularly. Scientists summarize this process with the phrase, use it or lose it. Synaptic pruning is important because it makes the brain more efficient, removes unnecessary connections, strengthens important learning pathways, and it improves thinking and memory. Moving on to brain plasticity. Brain plasticity is the ability of the brain to change its structure and function based on experiences, learnings, and repeated practice. Every time we learn something new, the brain creates or strengthens pathways or neural connections. Brain plasticity allows people to learn new skills, improve old skills, adapt to new situations, and to recover from a certain brain injuries. Although brain plasticity is strongest during childhood, it continues throughout life. So why are we talking about this? Why are we learning about the brain development? Well, it is important for us future teachers to understand how the brain develops because effective learning depends on how the brain forms and strengthens its neural connections.
By understanding about the brain or how the brain works, teachers can create learning experiences that improves memory, understanding, and lifelong learning. For example, daily reading. A teacher schedules 15 minutes of reading every morning instead of one long reading activity each week. Frequent practice strengthens reading fluency and vocabulary.
Good day, everyone. I'm Guillermo Genoa Saligi, and you just can call me Genoa. And before we start, I have a question. Bakit kaya natutulog yung mga estudyante sa klase? Dahil ba tamad sila? Ikaw, naranasan mo na bang maidlip sa klase? Yung tipong lumilipad yung utak mo kapag nagtuturo yung teacher sa harap? Well, today, we will discover that biological and physical development is influenced not only by genes, but also by environmental factors. In our previous topic, we learned from the first group that development is influenced by genes and environment, and these two interact with each other. There are 4 factors affecting biological and physical development. We have the sleep, nutrition, physical activity, and health, including the hygiene. Halos lahat naman tayo hindi na sinusunod ang 8 hours of sleep. We have our own reasons. May mga ibang nag-overtime sa trabaho, or yung iba tinatapos o nagka-cram sa PT nila, o meron naman mga students na nag-review for tomorrow's quiz or exam. Meron din mga tao na gumagamit lang ng phone kasi hindi sila makatulog. But it's very important, especially sa mga middle childhood and adolescents, na magkaroon ng sapat na tulog. According to Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in 2024, 7 out of 10 high school students do not get enough sleep on school nights. This shows that lack of sleep is common among adolescents and may affect their learning, focus, energy, and overall development. Bakit nga ba mahalagang magkaroon tayo ng tama at sapat na tulog? Well, first, it repairs body tissues, heals muscles and organs, strengthens the immune system, and lastly, it supports brain function like thinking and hormone regulation. Ano nga ba ang growth hormones? Ito yung mga hormones na inilalabas ng pituitary gland. Nasaan naman yung pituitary gland natin? So, makikita natin sa image sa baba, meron tayong brain image sa baba. So, yung nasa likod ng nose natin, sa may brain, yung parang P, yung nasa left side, yun yung tinatawag nating pituitary gland. Yan yung naglalabas ng hormones that helps children and adolescents grow. Ginagamit natin yung katawan natin at utak sa pang-araw-araw. Like for example na lang sa ating mga estudyante, ginagamit natin yung paa natin sa paglalakad araw-araw papunta sa mga departments natin or school. Tas yung mga brain natin is ginagamit natin kasi nag-iisip tayo during class o di kaya may pinasagutan sa atin yung mga teachers o simply nakikinig tayo sa kanila. So pag uwi natin, syempre pagod yung katawan at utak natin. So kapag natutulog tayo, during sleep, the body repairs damaged tissues and muscles by producing growth hormones. So yung mga growth hormones na ito, this can help the body recover, heal, and continue growing. Hindi lang sapat na tulog ang kinakailangan ng katawan natin. Kailangan din ito ng sapat na nutrisyon. Dahil ito mga nutrients na to ay nakakatulong sa growth and development ng body natin. According to the studies, during middle childhood, malnutrition doesn't only affect physical growth but also cognitive and physiological development. Kung mapapansin natin sa Pilipinas, madaming mga bata ang undernourished. Kaya ina-implementa ng iba't ibang mga schools or lahat ng schools sa Pilipinas ang feeding program para malasen yung pagdami ng mga students na undernourished. Sabi nga ni Hippocrates, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. Sinasabi lang dito na we have to choose wisely sa mga pagkain kinakain natin. Kasi it's either makakabuti siya sa atin o makakasama. Kagaya ng pagkain natin ng mga gulay at prutas. This helps our body to grow more kasi mas madami yung nutrients na nakukuha natin sa mga pagkain iyon. On the other hand, kapag madalas tayo sa mga junk foods, this can cause diseases or iba't ibang mga sakit. Common ngayon sa mga student, yung nag-skip sila ng mga breakfast nila, which can cause low energy at school. So habang nagtuturo yung teacher sa harap, kumakalam yung tiyan nila, o di kaya lumilipad yung mga utak nila kasi iniisip nila yung mga masasarap na pagkain, iniisip nila ano kakainin nila mamaya. So mahalagang kumain tayo sa umaga kasi ito yung nagsisilbi nating energy kapag pumapasok tayo at natututo tayo sa loob ng paaralan. The third factor is a physical activity. So ang tanong, nag-exercise pa ba tayo? Well, walking is simply a form of exercise naman. So bakit nga ba mahalagang nag-exercise tayo? Because it strengthens muscles and bones, improve motor skills, and support overall health. So kung napapansin natin, kapag yung mga teacher natin nakikitang parang inaantok na yung mga students niya, pinapatayo niya yung mga yon, tapos parang pinapagalaw sila, pinapasayaw, or di kaya may mga simple exercises na ipinapagawa. Dahil nga, kapag matagal kasi tayong nakaupo o nakahiga, yung blood natin is hindi nagsisirculate ng maayos. At dahilan yan, inaantok tayo. Kaya pinapagalaw tayo kasi nagsisirculate na maayos yung blood natin, tapos nagigising yung diwa natin o naiiwasan yung antok. And also sa lahat ng mga schools, meron tayong mga MAPE, yung PE, Physical Education, ngayon, meron tayong POTFIT. This helps to improve or maintain our physical fitness and overall health. Pero sa pag-exercise, may limitations din. Kasi hindi naman pwedeng ipilit mo yung sarili mong magbuhat ng mga mabibigat na hindi mo naman kaya para lang mapadali yung process ng pag-lessen ng fats mo, ganun. Hindi naman pwede yun. Kasi sabi ko nga kanina, may limitations din yung katawan natin. According to studies, 0 to 6 years old o yung tinatawag nating early childhood is considered in a golden age because physical and motor development happens very fast during this stage, especially through activities like play and movement. So mahalaga na habang bata pa lang sila, is nagkakaroon na sila ng mga simple movements kagaya ng paglalakad, pagtakbo, o di kaya yung mga pagbuo ng mga puzzles. Kasi sa generation natin, yung mga bata ngayon, masyado na sila sa screen time. Habang bata pa lang sila, nakatutok na agad sila sa tablet. So, pwede yung mag-cause ng pagkasira ng mata nila, and also bumabagal yung metabolism nila.
And lastly, we have the health.
It refers to the condition of the body and its ability to avoid illness. Sabi nga ni Verheul, good health is the greatest wealth. Ibig sabihin lang nito na mas mahalaga ang kalusugan kaysa sa anumang mga bagay. Kasi kapag healthy tayo, magagawa natin na maayos yung mga bagay-bagay na gusto nating gawin. So under this good health, meron tayong proper hygiene. We all know that bacteria are everywhere. So mahalagang naglilinis tayo ng katawan natin, kagaya ng pagligo o pagsisipilyo. Kasi simple lang yung proper hygiene ng mga to, pero it can prevent diseases. Malayo tayo sa dumi o mga bacterias. Gusto niyo ba yun? Yung palagi tayong nagkakasakit, which can cause absences in classes. Di ba yun natin yun? So para ma-prevent yun, kailangan alagaan natin yung sarili natin. Sabi nga ni Bel Mariano sa podcast niya, self-care isn't selfish. Hindi naman makasariling alagaan at piliin natin yung sarili natin. Kasi at the end of the day, sarili lang naman natin yung kaagapay natin sa lahat. As a future educator, meron tayong mga roles as a teacher sa loob ng classroom. So we observe student behavior first, communicate with parents, promote healthy habit in class. So like for example, may nakita tayo student natin na natutulog sa klase. Papagalitan ba natin siya agad? No. Kasi, as a teacher, responsibilidad natin na intindihin muna natin yung mga student natin. Ano ba yung pinagagalingan niya kaya siya natulog during my class? Boring ba ako as a teacher? Or merong other factor kaya siya natulog sa klase ko? So, tanongin muna natin, mag-observe tayo. So, pag na-observe natin, paano kung kaya pala natutulog siya sa klase? Kasi may trabaho siyang ginagawa pag uwi niya ng bahay. 'Di ba? So, bilang guro, kailangan natin maging patient. Kailangan natin maging understanding. And of course, dapat makicommunicate tayo sa parents ng mga students natin. Kasi sila yung mga magulang. Sila yung inuuwian ng mga students natin. Sila yung lubos na nakakakilala sa mga anak nila. So, kailangan natin tanongin, kailangan natin i-update yung mga magulang nila na natutulog po sa ganito, ganyan yung anak ninyo, ano po ba yung nangyayari sa bahay, ganyan. And of course, as a teacher, kailangan nating mag-isip ng pwedeng activity na gawin ng mga bata during your class para hindi sila inaantok. So, ano nga ba yung pwede natin gawin? Of course, gagawa tayo ng activity like a Zumba para magising-gising sila during your class. O di kaya simple exercises para na-exercise yung mga katawan nila. That's the 4 factors affecting biological and physical development. Ano nga ulit yung 4 factors? We have the sleep, nutrition, physical activity, and health. So the next topic will be the theories.
Hi everyone, I am Ashley Joy Galindo from Bid 1-1. Today, we will discuss 2 important theories in child development. These are Arnold Gissel's developmental milestone and Yuri Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theories. These theories help us understand how children grow, learn, and behave. As future teachers, it is important for us to understand these theories so we can better guide and support our future learners. Let's start with Arnold Giselle. Arnold Giselle was an American psychologist and pediatrician who studied how children grow and develop. He believed that children grow naturally. Just like a plant needs time to grow, children also need time to develop. We cannot force a child to grow faster than they are ready. He also believed that although children develop at different speeds, they usually follow the same order of development. For example, a baby learns to crawl before learning to walk. Even if one child walks earlier than another, both children are still developing normally. Now let's look at the main ideas of Giselle's theory. The first idea is that children develop naturally. The second idea is that development cannot be rushed. The third idea is that children experience both good days and difficult days while growing. Imagine planting a flower. You cannot pull the flower to make it grow faster because you might damage it. Instead, you water it, give it sunlight, and patiently wait. Children are the same. They need guidance, love, and patience while they grow. Equilibrium and disequilibrium. Giselle explained that children experience 2 important stages. The first is called equilibrium. Equilibrium means the child feels calm, happy, confident, and is easy to teach. For example, a student listens to the teacher, participates in class, and finishes activities. The second stage is called disequilibrium. Disequilibrium means the child is going through changes. The child may become emotional, confused, stubborn, or easily frustrated. This does not always mean the child is naughty. Sometimes, the child is simply adjusting to a new stage of development. As future teachers, we should understand this instead of becoming impatient. Now let's talk about Giselle's cyclical spiral progression. This spiral shows that child development is not a straight line. It is like riding a roller coaster or walking up a spiral staircase. Sometimes, children are in a stage called equilibrium. During this time, they feel calm, happy, and confident. They are usually easier to teach because they are ready to learn new things. Then, they move into a stage called disequilibrium. During this stage, they may become emotional, confused, stubborn, or frustrated. This is normal because they are adjusting to new skills and new experiences. After that, they return to equilibrium again. This cycle continues as they grow. The spiral also tells us something important. When children are very young, they go through the stages more quickly. As they get older, the changes happen more slowly. That is why the spiral is narrow at the bottom and wider at the top. As future teachers, we should remember that when children are in a disequilibrium stage, it is not always the best time to introduce major changes or expect perfect behavior. Instead, we should be patient, support them, and wait until they are ready to learn again. Now let's talk about Giselle's 6 developmental stages. According to Giselle, children go through 6 stages as they grow. The first stage is smooth, where children are calm and behave well. The second stage is breaking up, where they may become confused or emotional. The third stage is sorting out, where they begin to understand things again and become more confident. The fourth stage is inwardize, where children think deeply and may become shy or worried. The fifth stage is vigorous and expansive, where they become active, curious, and excited to explore. Finally, the sixth stage is fitting together, where children continue adjusting to new changes in life. These stages repeat as children continue to grow. Let's apply Giselle's theory in the classroom. Imagine that a grade 1 student suddenly cries often and refuses to participate. Some people may think the child is simply being difficult. However, according to Giselle, the child may just be experiencing a normal stage of development. Instead of getting angry, a good teacher stays patient, offers encouragement, and provides support. This helps the child feel safe and ready to learn again.
Good day everyone, I am Crystal B. Esteban and my topic for today is all about Fembrenner's ecological system theory. In this theory, it says that a child does not grow up alone. A child's development is affected by the people, places, and situations around them. These influences come from different levels, from the closest environment like family and friends, schools, up to bigger things like culture, society, and life events. This ecological system theory have 5 contextual systems. First is microsystem. This is the closest and most direct environment of the child. It includes the people and places the child interacts with every day, such as family, school, friends, teachers, and neighborhood. This system has the strongest direct effect because the child experiences it personally. For example, if a child is loved and supported at home, the child may feel more confident in school. But if the child is always scolded or hurt at home, that can affect behavior in class. Second is the mesosystem. This is the connection between 2 or more microsystems. It shows how the child's different direct environments affect each other. For example, the relationship between home and school, the connection between parents and teachers, the link between friends and family. If parents and teachers communicate well, the child usually gets better support. But if the child has problems at home, it may show up in school too. That is why this system is important. One part of a child's life can influence another part. The third one is exosystem. This is the environment that does not directly involve the child but still affect the child indirectly. The child is not always present in these settings, but the results are still felt. Examples: a parent workplace, a sibling schools, a community service, and local government decisions. For example, if a mother is very stressed at work, she may come home tired, impatient, or less attentive to the child. The child is not part of the workplace, but the workplace still affects the child's life, so even indirect environments matter. The fourth one is macro system. This is the largest level, which includes the culture, beliefs, values, traditions, laws, and economic situation of a country or society. Examples: cultural beliefs, social class, religion, gender roles, poverty or wealth, and national policies. This system shapes how people live and what opportunities they have. For example, a child growing up in a poor community may have fewer resources for education. A child in a society that values education may receive more support and better opportunities. The last one is chronosystem. This system focuses in time and life changes. It includes important events, transitions, and changes that happen as a person grows. Examples: parents separating, death of a family member, moving to a new place, becoming an orphan, and historical events or social changes. These events can strongly affect a child's development. For example, if a child suddenly loses a parent, that can change emotions, school performance, and behavior. Time matters because people and situations do not stay the same forever.
Current research and pedagogical application focuses on how current studies of brain can help teachers improve learning. One of the most important topics is self-regulation because it affects child's readiness to learn and academic success. Self-regulation is ability to control emotion, behavior, attention, and action. For example, when a child waits for their turn, stays focused during class, or calm down after getting upset, they are using self-regulation. This ability does not develop instantly but develop gradually as the brain matures and supported by positive guidance by the teacher, parents, and caregivers. Now let's move on with the three important parts of the brain that help children develop self-regulation. First is the prefrontal cortex. It is called the brain central thinker because it helps with the decision making, planning, reasoning, remembering information, and control impulses. Second one is limbic system. It is the brain's emotional center. It processes emotion like happiness, fear, anger, and stress. Lastly is the anterior cingulate cortex, or AAC. It acts as a bridge between thinking brain and emotional brain. It helps children shift from reacting with emotion to thinking calmly before they act.
Hi, I'm Garcia Altea Joy S. Implications for teaching. Did you know that we have a part of our brain responsible for focus, self-regulation, and impulse control? This is what we call the prefrontal cortex. Prefrontal cortex does not fully mature until around the age of 25. As a future educator, we should know that our students only ranges 5 to 11 years old. This age of a child usually may display signs of immature central nervous system. There are 3 easy ways to help the students. First, you should repeat the directions often. Second, ask them to say the step back to you. And lastly, put a clear visual reminders on the wall. Do not give the steps once because it overloads the student. We should do a step-by-step process. Give just only one step at a time. These are the key takeaways for future elementary educators. First, be an external brain for the students. Young children lack maturity to systematically organize themselves. Second, scaffold memory traps. Avoid assuming elementary students are ignoring your directions. Children require brief instructions and visual aids to be back on track.
Now, let's look at the 4 recent studies that support biological development and its application in education. First study is by Yulianis, Maswar, and Daliana, 2025. Their study focused on physical motor development in young children. It examined how gross motor skills like running and jumping and fine motor like skills like writing and drawing are connected. The researchers find out that physical play is very important because it helps develop muscle, improve coordination, and teaches children how to interact and socialize with others. Importance of their studies. As future teacher, we should remember that children learn better way when they are physically healthy. We also need to observe if a child has delay in motor development so we can provide the appropriate support. Before expecting child to do difficulty learning tasks, we should first make sure that their basic physical needs are met. Second study is by Zambrano Villalba, Pinchay Aguilar, and Sanchez Zambrano 2025. Their study focuses on executive function and emotional self-regulation in children and adolescents. The researchers explained that different parts of the brain work together to help children to control their emotion, focus their attention, and make good decisions. Since these brain areas are still developing, children may sometimes have emotional outbursts or difficulty controlling their behavior. This study is important because it reminds us that children's emotional reactions are often part of their normal brain development. Instead of getting angry or immediately punishing them, teachers should stay calm, guide them, and help them learn how to manage their emotion.
Hi, I am Garcia Altea Joy S. And now, let's take a look at the 2026 global research by Handman, Pachen, and Weidner entitled Reimagining Plays in School. This study tracks how active outdoor play in elementary schoolyards impact young learners. Essentially, it shows that outdoor play is the key for building child's physical motor skills and fundamental brain functions. The big takeaway here for us as a future elementary educators is that we shouldn't cut recess or outdoor playtime to squeeze more time in test preparations. Moving around physically actually help a child stay cognitive, engaged, and focused. Now, let's take a look at this another 2026 research by Dritoni and Consortium entitled Neuroplasticity Informed Learning Under Cognitive Load. This research looks at how stress and mental load affects a student's brain during learning. Using brain scans, they found out an inverted U pattern. This simply means that a little bit of challenge actually good because it excites the brain and helps students learn. However, if the stress becomes too extreme or overwhelming, the brain development of a child completely stops. As a future elementary educators, our main takeaway is to balance. We need to challenge our students enough to help them grow, but we must also protect them from extreme stress so their brain can function at their best.